So many of you will have heard about the awful stabbings at Huntingdon train station on Saturday, but no surprise, it's been hijacked for political purposes. And I think it's routine now. When a violent attack happens, the first thing is speculation from those who can weaponize horrific events to suit people's agenda. Now, if you didn't hear what happened, here's the lowdown. Passengers travelling from Doncaster to London were attacked in a mass stabbing on a train on Saturday night. 11 people received treatment in hospital following the attack. One, a member of the train staff, is in a critical but stable condition. Two British men in their 30s were initially arrested, while police said there was nothing to suggest it was a terror incident. So two people were arrested, but one was released. Now we have more information on the suspect. Anthony Williams, 32, from Peterborough, was charged on Monday with 10 counts of attempted murder. Police said he has also been charged with another count of attempted murder and possession of a bladed article in connection with an incident at Pontoon Dock DLR station in the early hours of the same day. Anytime an incident like this happens, people clamour for information to be released, but when half of the facts are open to the public, that's when you get a whole host of misinformation. Now, Tom Harwood tweeted, "It's been over 14 hours. The police have told us they have to..." Sorry, I'll start that again. "It's been over 14 hours. The police have told us they hold two suspects. Eyewitnesses have described what they believe the attackers looked like. People are fighting for their lives. Why are we still waiting for the police to say what the suspects they hold look like?" And this is the problem. I think police should only release information when they have the full facts. I mean, what if they released the name of the second person who was released? I mean, this would ruin the life of an innocent man. But look, let's be completely real here. A lot of racists want their bias to be confirmed. Even though the suspect who was charged is British, the far right have already made this a race issue. So we got an exchange here. Mukhtar initially said on Twitter, both of the suspects were born in the UK. Matt, as in Matt Goodwin, was jumping to conclusions as usual. Matt Goodwin quote tweeted him saying, "So were all the 7/7 bombers. It takes more than a piece of paper to make someone British." I mean, what exactly makes someone British then? I mean, I think we can all see what he's trying to say here. Although Matt can't seem to get his narrative straight. This is what he said about being British in September. "If I identified as Pakistani, would I be from Pakistan? Of course not. Britishness is a nationality. Englishness is an ethnicity. Ethnicity. This is not hard." So which is it, Matt? I mean, is Britishness a nationality or an ethnicity? This is what happens when you're racist. And yes, I'm calling Matt a racist. That racism is illogical. It's stupid. Now, when the media focuses on certain stories above others, that's when a narrative is formed. You may not have heard of David Nauch. He is a 31-year-old white man who threatened people with a blade and assaulted two officers in a racially aggravated assault at the beginning of October. But it's not just about highlighting certain stories. It is the fear that the media creates. Yes, knife crime still happens, as demonstrated on Saturday. But would you know that violent crime is actually down? So the chances of you being stabbed by a stranger is around half of what it was since the year 2000. Yet despite the statistics, people feel less safe. The attention on such crimes have been weaponized by the right wing, and it's the fault of, they say, mass migration. It's the fault of culture and religion. Yet they neglect to mention 45 years of neoliberalism, 15 years of austerity, with mental health services being gutted. Which is why many transport staff have gone on strike. Yes, for better paying conditions, but also to save the jobs of train guards. The RMT has been on strike many times in order to save the guards on the grounds of safety. Yet this is what the right-wing media think of those who protect the public. So this headline, as you can see, this is the Daily Mail denigrating train guards when clearly they are important. Now, it is worth noting that crimes on railways have increased. Crime on the network has been increasing for some time. In 2024 to 2025, BTP, the British Transport Police, recorded 7,405 crimes against its staff. an 8% increase on the previous year. This is followed by nearly 10,000 assaults on members of the public and passengers in 23-24. A startling 17% increase on the year before. In total, crime was up on the network. The BTP recorded 5% more crime in 24-25 than it did in the previous year. Yet, the BTP has been facing big cuts, with more to continue. British Transport Police is facing a funding shortfall of nearly £10 million for the 25-26, falls neatly into a backdrop of an increasing threat of crime towards the railway that puts its safety at risk. But instead of looking at systemic problems, we have Labour Defence Secretary John Healey calling on the public to be more vigilant.
Well, for me, the British public are basically, we're pretty tough, pretty resilient. We're not going to be deflected from carrying out our everyday lives, and that's right. I don't want people to feel that they can't or they shouldn't, and they will. But I think it requires us all to be more vigilant about our electronic devices, about the risk of cyber fraud and cyber attack, and just be more vigilant for looking out for others around us.
I mean, I just think it's crazy to ask people to be more vigilant when first of all, people are vigilant anyway. But why isn't he talking about austerity? Louisa, what do you make of the responses from the stabbings on Saturday?
I want to be quite straight to the point here because fascism is predicated and fueled by fear and aggrievement. And I think it's about time we start using that term. And these people that we're talking about, the white working class, like they do have something to fear, and that's worsening inequality. It's falling living standards. It's their lives are literally becoming harder to live, and it is an existential crisis that they're facing, but it's caused by an economic system that allows for the rich to eat the poor. And when this attack is deeply psychological and economic and perpetrated through like these unseen forces sort of thing, to give you like a kind of critical theory point of view, the threat isn't visible. So these physical acts of violence, like stabbings, gives this violence a face, a weapon, and importantly, a race. And when neoliberalism has taught us that we only have ourselves to blame for our failures for the past 50 years, scapegoats are incredibly appealing to wounded, the aggrieved, the dispossessed, and obviously the white working class in this sense. So I just think it was sort of inevitable that this is going to happen. And as well, like this physical violence that we do see through these, whether it is stabbings, it sort of gives a excuse to follow with violence. And that violence is very, very difficult to stamp out once it begins. And I think we need to be really, really careful about how this is being perceived and where this is going in the media.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you made about the invisibility of sort of economic problems, because of course violence, especially stabbing, is very visceral. It is very real. We're not downplaying it, but I suppose, and that's why I talk about sort of the media narrative. That despite the fact that violent crime is generally on the down, it doesn't really matter when you see these instances. When you have the media reporting on it, it feels very real. It feels like it's increasing. But something about the economic problems we've faced, from Thatcher for 45 years, it's less visible. So I think it's, generally probably harder to convince people that actually these crimes are sort of an effect of poverty, inequality, and austerity. I do notice, though, that the right wing have completely shifted from economic policy. I mean, I would say the Conservatives were the strongest when it came to, well, the rhetoric was quite strong on economic policy with like David Cameron. He managed to win the argument on, living within your means. And the right wing has completely, fundamentally shifted that they won't touch economics. It's all about culture, religion, and race. And obviously the left, we've always talked about economics, but we have a louder voice. Why do you think that is? Why do you think the right has pivoted from saying, we need to be fiscally prudent to actually, let's just flood the market with culture wars?
I think part of it is due to the fact that this is becoming extremely emotional. What the white working class face is this constant aggrievement, this constant dispossession, and making sense of that is very, very difficult when it has been 50 years of neoliberalism. And it's not something that you're going to easily be able to convince people of. It's sort of our responsibility on the left to communicate these ideas the best way we can. But we have to also recognize that this is deep deep wounds, and that, to get very psychoanalytic, like, it's the death drive, it's always towards self-destruction or destruction of others, and that is exactly what the far right are preying on. And if we don't tackle that, and we don't tackle and recognize the emotional pain that has been caused by neoliberalism, then they will become prey, easy pickings for far right leaders, because the weakest in society, and they will find strongman leaders the most appealing. You always find a strongman leader appealing when you feel the weakest. So it's sort of the left's job to fight on both the macro level, but also the micro level. Speak to your mate, speak to your brother, speak to your nan, and talk to them about what they truly are threatened by, what they truly feel that they fear of losing. And I think that's where we need to start having those conversations and unpacking those emotions.
I really, really agree with that second bit, the sort of micro campaigning, shall we say? Because yes, we talk about politics and the economy in a macro kind of way, in a holistic way, and of course we need to do that. But it's the individual conversations we have, which I find that, like, sometimes the left, we can be quite weak on that. Not because we don't have anything to say, but maybe we just get so into the almost existential. I mean, I can do that. I did ask you your thoughts. I mean, how do you feel when someone like John Healey says, well, we just need to be more vigilant? I mean, first of all, it kind of tells me, it feels like he's saying people aren't vigilant anywhere. I feel like we are. I don't know about you. I mean, when I'm out somewhere, I've got my wits about me. I mean, maybe not, I will go as far to say it's offensive, but what's your knee-jerk reaction when he says you need to be more vigilant? Almost like exporting the problems onto the public, despite the fact that we've had systemic underfunding, systemic cuts, and it's like you yourself need to sort of individualize the problem.
Well, yeah. And vigilance is intentionally very vague, isn't it? Vigilant of what? It's saying that this violence is visible, it's something that you can see, it's in a face, it's in behavior, when it's not. Violence is not just stabbing, it's not just physical violence. Violence is homelessness, violence is underfunding. We know that this systemic violence isn't something you can be vigilant about on the train. And yet, of course, it's important that we are vigilant about our own safety and other people's safety, because it is literally, a matter of survival, especially, I know all about it being, a woman. And that is important, but it's intentionally vague. We can't be using this sort of language. And it's funny because what we should be vigilant about here is the language that is being used in the media. It's November, it's the month of remembrance, and it seems we have forgotten the 1930s. It seems we have forgotten what we fought against. And that is what we should start to be more vigilant about.